A lawyer showed up at our family dinner with urgent papers. My mother-in-law said, "We already signed." I smiled and opened the folder. Her signature was forged. My husband turned pale as I said, "It's best if you just leave." He trembled and left. So picture this. It's a regular Tuesday night, and I'm sitting at my dining room table with my husband's family for what I thought was going to be just another boring dinner with the in-laws. You know how it is. Pass the mashed potatoes, talk about the weather, pretend everything's peachy while secretly counting down the minutes until they leave. But man, was I wrong about that night being boring. I'd been married to Jake for about 3 years at this point, and honestly, things had been rocky for a while. Not gonna lie, I'd been getting some weird vibes from him and his mom lately. They'd been having these hushed conversations that would stop the second I walked into a room, and Jake had been acting all sketchy about money stuff, like he'd get this deer in headlights look whenever I brought up our joint accounts or asked about bills. His mom, Carol, had always been one of those passive-aggressive types who smiled to your face but talked trash behind your back. You know the kind. She'd make little comments about my cooking or how I kept house, always with this sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. Real piece of work, that woman. Anyway, we're all sitting there, me, Jake, Carol, and his dad, Bob, when there's this knock at the door. Jake jumps up like he's been electrocuted, which should have been my first red flag, but I was busy trying to salvage the chicken that was drying out in the oven. Next thing I know, Jake's walking back in with this guy in a sharp navy suit carrying a leather briefcase. Dude looked like he stepped straight out of a legal drama, no cap. Professional as anything, but there was something in his expression that made my stomach drop. "Sorry to interrupt your dinner," the lawyer says, all polite and formal. "I'm David Chen from Morrison & Associates. I need to discuss some urgent documents with the family." Carol perks up immediately, like she's been expecting this guy. That's when alarm bells really started going off in my head. Why would my mother-in-law know about some lawyer showing up at our house when I didn't have a clue? The lawyer, Mr. Chen, opens his briefcase and pulls out this thick manila folder. "These are the property transfer documents we discussed. I need to verify the signatures before we can proceed with the filing." Carol practically chirps, "Oh yes, we already signed everything, didn't we, Bob?" She gives her husband this look that could freeze hell over, and poor Bob just nods like a bobblehead. But here's where things get interesting. I'm sitting there thinking, what property transfer? We hadn't talked about selling anything, or buying anything. Our house was in both our names, and we sure hadn't discussed signing it over to anyone. So I speak up, trying to keep my voice casual. "What property are we talking about here?" Jake starts stammering something about it being family business, and how I wouldn't understand the legal stuff, which just ticked me off more. Like, excuse me? I might not be a lawyer, but I'm not stupid either. Mr. Chen looks between all of us, clearly sensing the tension. The documents pertain to the transfer of the property at 1247 Maple Street, this residence, into Mrs. Carol Henderson's name. My blood went cold. This residence, my house, the house Jake and I bought together, the house I'd been paying the Oz-site mortgage on for 3 years, the house where I'd planted a garden and painted every single room myself. Update. Holy cow, you guys. I never expected this to blow up like it has. Just wanted to say thanks for all the support and advice. Some of you are asking if I suspected something was up. Honestly, I had no idea it would be this bad. But wait until you hear what happened. Next. Should I have seen this coming? "I'm sorry," I said, my voice getting that dangerous quiet tone that anyone who knows me learns to watch out for. "Did you just say you're transferring my house into my mother-in-law's name?" Carol gets this smug little smile and goes, "Well, dear, technically it was always family property. We just helped with the down payment, so really we're just making it official." The audacity of this woman. Yeah, they'd helped us with $5,000 for the down payment 3 years ago. $5,000 out of the total $200,000 we'd paid. And now she thought that entitled her to steal my entire house? Jake's sitting there looking like he wants to disappear into the floor, which tells me everything I need to know about his involvement in this little scheme. "Can I see those documents?" I ask Mr. Chen, extending my hand. He hesitates for a second, looking at Jake but then hands over the folder. "Of course, you should definitely review anything before it's filed." I flip through the pages, and my hands are literally shaking with rage. There it is, clear as day. Documents transferring full ownership of my house to Carol Henderson, dated for today's date. And right there at the bottom, supposedly my signature agreeing to give up all rights to the property. Except here's the thing, I never signed anything, not a single page. I look up at Carol, who's still got that self-satisfied smirk on her face. "You said we already signed these?" "Yes, dear, last week when you were at your sister's place. Don't you remember?" "I was at my sister's place last week, but Jake hadn't come with me. I'd spent the whole weekend there helping her move apartments. Jake said he was too busy with work to help out." "That's interesting," I say, flipping to the signature page. "Because this isn't my signature." The room goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop on the carpet. Mr. Chen leans forward, suddenly very alert. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" I hold up the page so everyone can see it. "This signature here, supposedly mine? It's forged. I never signed this document, and I sure as heck never agreed to sign over my house to anyone." Carol's face goes white, as a sheet. Jake looks like he's about to throw up all over the mashed potatoes. Bob just sits there looking confused, like he's trying to figure out what channel he accidentally changed to. That's impossible," Carol stutters. "Jake said you'd agreed to it. He said you wanted to simplify the family finances." I turn to look at my husband, this man I'd been sharing a bed with for 3 years, and I can barely recognize him. "Jake, did you forge my signature on legal documents?" He opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again like a fish gasping for air. Finally, he manages to croak out, "I can explain." "Oh, I'd love to hear this explanation," I say, crossing my arms. "Please explain to me and this lawyer here how you thought forging my signature to steal my house was a good idea." Mr. Chen is frantically taking notes now, and I can see him already distancing himself from this mess. Smart man. Jake starts babbling about how his mom needed financial security, how they thought I'd be okay with it since we're all family, how he was going to tell me eventually. The usual garbage people spout when they get caught doing something terrible. But Carol, bless her rotten heart, decides to double down. "Well, maybe if you were a better wife and contributed more to this household, we wouldn't have had to take matters into our own hands." That was it. That was the moment I decided. I was done playing nice. I stand up, walk over to where she's sitting, and lean down so we're eye to eye. "Carol," I say, my voice sweet as pie, "it's best if you just leave. Now." She sputters something about it being her son's house, but I'm already moving. I pull out my phone and dial 911. "Yes, I need to report attempted fraud. Someone forged my signature on property transfer documents." Update. You guys are asking great questions about what happened with the police and everything. I'm getting to that part, but first, did I mention that I work in forensic accounting? Yeah, that's going to be important in a minute. What do you think happened when I told the cops what I do for a living? The dispatcher asks for my address, and I give it to them while staring directly at Jake. He's gone from pale to green, and I'm pretty sure he's going to lose it right there on my dining room table. Mr. Chen stands up and starts packing his briefcase. "I'm going to need to report this to my firm immediately. Mrs. He pauses, realizing he doesn't actually know my name. "Johnson," I tell him. "And just so you know, I work in forensic accounting for the state attorney's office. I specialize in financial fraud cases." The look on Carol's face was priceless. Pure terror mixed with the dawning realization that she'd just tried to defraud someone who literally catches people doing exactly what she just did for a living. Jake finally finds his voice. "Honey, please, we can work this out. Mom was just trying to help. Help herself to my house, you mean?" I snap back. "And don't call me honey. You lost that privilege when you decided to forge my signature." The police arrive about 10 minutes later, 2 officers who look like they've seen this kind of family drama before. I hand over the documents to Officer Martinez, who takes one look at the forged signature and starts asking the right questions. "Ma'am, can you verify that this isn't your signature?" I pull out my driver's license and a credit card. "Officer, I work in forensic accounting. I can tell you with absolute certainty that this signature was forged, and I can probably tell you who did it if you give me 5 minutes with a magnifying glass." While Officer Martinez is examining the documents, his partner Officer Williams is taking statements from everyone. Carol keeps trying to play the victim, talking about how she just wanted to protect the family investment, and how I'm being unreasonable. Bob, meanwhile, finally speaks up. Turns out he had no idea about any of this. Carol had told him they were signing some insurance papers, and he'd just gone along with it because he trusts his wife. Poor guy looked like someone had just told him Santa Claus wasn't real. Jake's story keeps changing every time someone asks him a question. First it was Carol's idea, then it was his idea to help Carol, then it was all a misunderstanding, then he thought I'd already agreed to it. Classic behavior of someone who's been caught red-handed and is trying to lie his way out of it. Officer Martinez comes back over with the documents. "Ma'am, I have to ask, are you pressing charges?" I look around the room at these people who were supposed to be my family. Carol, who'd spent 3 years making snide comments about everything from my cooking to my career. Jake, who'd just tried to steal my house out from under me. Bob, who I actually felt sorry for, because he'd clearly been manipulated too. Against Jake and Carol, yes, Bob didn't know what he was signing. The officers arrest Jake and Carol right there in my dining room. They read them their rights while I'm standing there in my apron, still holding a spatula from when I'd been trying to save dinner. As they're walking Jake out in handcuffs, he has the nerve to turn back and say, "This is really how you want to handle this?" "We're married." I look him dead in the eye and say, "Not for much longer." After everyone leaves, the police, the lawyer, Bob, who apologized about 50 times before shuffling out to find a hotel, I'm finally alone in my house. My house. The house I'd worked 2 jobs to afford. The house where I'd planned to start a family. The house that someone tried to steal from me using my own husband. I pour myself a glass of wine, a nice Cabernet I'd been saving for a special occasion, and call my sister. "Girl, you are not going to believe what just happened," I tell her. She listens to the whole story, gasping and cursing in all the right places. By the end, she's ready to drive over and help me burn Jake's clothes in the backyard. "What are you gonna do now?" she asks. "First thing tomorrow, I'm calling a divorce lawyer. Then I'm calling my boss to see if I can get assigned to their fraud case. I want to make sure they throw the book at both of them." Over the next few weeks, everything unraveled pretty quickly. Turns out Jake had been planning this for months. He'd been going through our financial documents, learning my signature, even practicing it on scratch paper that I found hidden in his desk drawer. The forensic analysis of the forged signature was pretty damning. They could tell it had been traced and practiced, and Jake's fingerprints were all over the original documents. Carol claimed she didn't know the signature was forged, but her story fell apart when they found text messages between her and Jake planning the whole thing. My divorce lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia who reminded me of my favorite professor from college, made quick work of the proceedings. With Jake facing felony fraud charges, he wasn't in much position to argue about property division. The house stayed mine, obviously. Jake lost his job when his employer found out about the charges. Turns out they don't love having accused felons handling other people's money. Who would have thought? Carol tried to play the victim right up until her court date, claiming I was vindictive and trying to destroy the family. The judge wasn't buying it. She got 2 years probation and had to pay restitution for my legal fees. Jake got it worse. 18 months in county jail plus 3 years probation. His lawyer tried to argue that it was all Carol's idea and he was just being manipulated, but the evidence showed he was the one who actually forged the signature. Bob divorced Carol about 6 months later. Turns out this wasn't the first time. She'd pulled something shady with family money. He moved to Florida to be closer to his sister and sends me a Christmas card every year. Update. A lot of you have been asking about what happened to me after all this craziness. Well, buckle up because the ending is better than I ever could have imagined. Remember how I mentioned working in forensic accounting? That skill set came in handy in ways I never expected. Want to know how this whole mess actually made my life amazing? The best part of this whole story is what happened after the dust settled. About 8 months after Jake went to jail, I got a call from Mr. Chen, the lawyer who'd brought the forged documents to my house. Turns out his firm was so impressed with how I'd handled the situation and my expertise in forensic accounting that they wanted to offer me a job. They were expanding their white-collar crime division and needed someone with my skills and experience. The salary was almost double what I was making with the state, plus they offered to pay for me to get my law degree if I wanted to eventually become a forensic accountant attorney. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. I took the job, obviously. My first case was helping them represent a woman whose business partner had been embezzling money for years. Felt good to be on the right side of justice, helping people instead of just processing cases for the state. About a year later, I met David at a coffee shop near my new office. He was a public defender, not exactly rolling in money, but passionate about helping people who couldn't afford good legal representation. We started talking about our work, and I was impressed by how much he cared about his clients. We've been together for 2 years now, and he's nothing like Jake. When David says he's going to do something, he does it. When he makes a promise, he keeps it. And most importantly, he's never once tried to forge my signature on anything. We bought a house together last year, a beautiful Victorian fixer-upper about 20 minutes from my